All right, so we're going to talk about some reading strategies that we've been talking about for a few weeks now, but you're going to put them to use again on your nonfiction reading project, and so it's a good idea to review. First, though, the thing you're going to be looking for in your reading selection that you get to choose, by the way, is the central idea. Since this is a nonfiction thing you're going to be reading, it is a central idea you're looking for. Theme is for fictional stories. However, there are exceptions like Mouse. Mouse is actually a true story. It's nonfiction. However, it has themes because it's written like it's literature. The articles you're going to be reading are similar in that way, so they can have themes or central ideas. But in general, the central idea is for nonfiction, and so that's the term we're going to use. The way themes work is they are lessons the author wants us to learn from the story, or they are issues that are a part of the story. This second one is similar to what central idea is. It brings up things in the story that happen to be a major part of the story but aren't necessarily something that we, the reader, are going to have resolved or are definitely going to learn a lesson from. It's just an issue that comes up. For example, an issue in Mouse is that Vladek is an extremely lucky guy. There are several points along the way where he could have died and instead arrived at just the right time, left at just the right time, all kinds of things. And so he was lucky, and it's not resolved in the story about a lesson we're supposed to learn about luck. It's just a topic that comes up because Vladek is repeatedly lucky to survive the Holocaust. The central idea of a nonfiction story is very similar to that. It is the idea that the author is trying to support with every other part of the piece. Now, you're going to read some stories that have a very story-like quality to them. They're not just straight up facts or persuasive essays. And so you're going to be working with central ideas. If the author is trying to prove something with the article, you can figure that out. And you're also going to be looking at issues that come up in the article, even if it's not completely resolved. So now let's review some of the reading strategies you're going to use here in order to comprehend what you're reading and then be able to talk about central ideas and theme and all that good stuff that we do in English classes. In order to figure out central ideas, we've got to understand what we read. And so reading comprehension is the most important thing. That means any of the reading strategies we use, any of the note-taking strategies we use, any of the thinking strategies you've ever learned all come into play when you're reading for school, because that's what this is for. Reading for fun works totally differently. But in school, you have to have a systematic approach to it in order to do your best on it. The first one that we always mention in class is slowing down and rereading, because a lot of times people make the mistake of reading too quickly. And so if you are reading along and you don't understand what you're reading, that means you stop, you go back to where you last understood it, and then you start reading again until you get it. Because the most important thing for anything that you read for school, tests, assignments, books, random things your teacher gives you, whatever, the most important thing is that first you read it so that you understand it. And that's what all these reading strategies, even slowing down and rereading, help you do. The second one that I always make you do on your notes, and you'll want to use here with your article too, is summarizing. After you read a paragraph or two or three or a page, you want to at least try to summarize it in your mind. I, of course, asked you to actually write summaries of Mouse and a few other things that you read as part of your assignments. But in general, if you can repeat, even just in your head or out loud to a partner, what it is that you just read on that page or that couple of paragraphs or just that paragraph, then you're doing a good job of summarizing because you're paying attention to what the main ideas are. The next one is making mental images. That was easy in Mouse because it had pictures that go with it, but not all readings do, obviously, and so making mental images helps you see in your head what the author is describing with words. Whereas in Mouse you could actually see the picture, and so the author's words weren't all words, they were also details in the drawing. So it's important to remember that when you're reading, not only do you want to slow down, but one of the ways that can help you is to actually picture what the author is describing using the words that they use to describe. Another one is predicting. This one is essentially one that helps you pay attention to the structure of the story. In fiction, it means you predict what's going to happen next or what's going to happen at the end because you've seen stories that are sequenced or structured in a similar way. In nonfiction, you're going to pay attention to, yeah, maybe you can guess what happens in the story, but also if there's a larger central idea to the article, which there almost always is, you are going to see if you can anticipate what the author is going to do to support that. as well, because that's exactly how essays work and exactly how nonfiction writing works and exactly how stories work. It's always just setting it up and having evidence to support what you're saying. Another one that really helps me is asking questions. This is because it gives you sort of a process to follow if you're thinking. It's almost like thinking out loud. So even simple questions like, why did a character decide to do that, are good questions to ask when you're reading, because it gives you something to look for when you're reading. And above all, that is an important thing to do when you're reading for school, is to look for things when you're reading and not just read the words. Because when you look for things when you're reading, you are engaging your brain in a couple of different ways instead of just scanning words. And you are reading in a more active and critical way, and it really helps. It's also a good testing strategy, like for the ECA or the SAT or the ACT, because obviously you're given questions to answer about the thing that you're reading, and so you need to look for them as you read. And it's the same thing, only if you're reading something that doesn't have questions, you are the one coming up with the questions. So to review, the central idea of a nonfiction text is basically very similar to the theme of a fictional story. It can be an issue that comes up, or it can be a point the author is trying to make. In order to figure out the central idea, we are going to have to use reading strategies, just like when we read Maus, just like when we read short stories, all the other stuff, because the idea is that you'll use them forever. And remember, the reading for school is meant to challenge you and make you think. It is not just there to be entertaining. School stories can be entertaining, like Maus is a very good book, but it doesn't mean that it will definitely be entertaining. So if you don't go in expecting to be entertained, but rather expecting to use reading strategies and have a systematic approach, the assignments will be much easier. So thank you for listening, and you can proceed on to the next video, and good luck with your assignment.